coming up next on the politics of politics.
The future of this country is a contestation between myself and Julius Malema.
Ooh, that's a big statement.
And I say it like this.
That's a big statement.
Let me tell you why.
You're dissing them, bruh.
I'm not. I'm just saying. No, by saying when you look at the Premier League, Chiefs see more, Sundowns see more, Pirates see more. By saying Hore Sikukuni is there, it's not dissing anyone. It's just saying the rankings are like what they are. That's what I'm saying.
The criticism that I hear is that you're quite hard to work with.
Me?
Yeah, that Herman Mashaba, they couldn't do a deal with Herman. Lindwe Mazibuko, Barke Mankana, Mbali. You led those guys. I would have expected at some point that you would have been together.
And maybe the future is still open to that conversation. It's not shut.
But also as a kingmaker in the elections, you can't call yourself a kingmaker.
Why not?
That's pretentious.
What do you mean?
Hi everyone, welcome to the Politics of Politics. I'm your host, Nyaole Khabo. Please click the like button down below. And if you have not subscribed to our show, I encourage you to hit that subscribe button. Our show delves into the intricacies of South African politics. We do this in order to inform you, especially leading up to the 2024 general elections and beyond. We do this by engaging with political, business, and civic leaders that shape our society. And today, we've got one such leader, Mr. Mmusi Maimane, the former leader of the Democratic Alliance, and now the founder and president of Build One South Africa. I'm quite excited to get into this discussion with him. But before then, my political agenda. My political agenda is a segment of the show where I share with you my thoughts about any issue that I have picked up in the media or something that I'm passionate about. And today, I want to introduce you to a fine politician. Please go Google her. Please follow her. Please go onto YouTube and check her links. Her name is none other than Sylvia Lucas. Sylvia Lucas is an ANC Member of Parliament, a very senior one for that matter. And she also happens to be the Deputy Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces. Now, you ask me why I am so excited about Sylvia Lucas. I am excited about Sylvia Lucas because in the State of the Nation address debate, she made a very important point. Quote unquote, load shedding is not the end of the world. The reason why we have load shedding is because we are being sabotaged. And we shall deal with the sabotage. Close quote. Now, if there's someone who is super out of touch with realities and the pain that South Africans feel because of load shedding, is Member of Parliament Sylvia Lucas. I know you don't know about her, but she runs your life. She decides whether you get an NSFAS. She votes in Parliament. She's very important. She decides your future. She decides whether the speed at which we fast-track policies and legislation for load shedding. And this is her thoughts. She thinks it is not the end of the world. But I understand it. It's not the end of the world for her. Because between all the money that they have stolen with her friends, as well as all the benefits that they're getting, oh, did I say stolen? Ooh, they'll sue me. It's all right. I'll issue an apology later. This is exactly where we are. This is why it's important to become active voters. I have mentioned this in the show before, that active voters go out and look for information. I really urge you to look for information. If we're going to have the likes of Sylvia Lucas in Parliament, still leading us, still deciding our future for the next 5 years, God help us. I found her comments very illuminating. If you see what I did there. And next up, Mmusi Maimane. As promised, we've got the leader and president of Build One South Africa movement, Mr. Mmusi Maimane. Mmusi, how are you, boss?
I'm good, thanks. And you, it's so good to be here. It's my great privilege.
Finally. Jeez.
Finally, but it is a privilege.
No, cool. I'm quite excited to have you here, actually, for a variety of reasons. I'm going to talk BOSA, we're going to talk South Africa, we're going to talk politics, the elections are coming and everything else. But I'm quite excited. It's a special thing for me because I have a friend, a childhood friend who passed away 2 years back, Lebo More.
Really?
Yes. Right?
My goodness.
So,
yeah.
At some point when I had a very different kind of like show, Leo kept saying, dude, I need to get together with Mmusi. The man, I miss him so much. The man was very committed to the country.
Of course.
He served under you, maybe not directly under you, but in the provincial legislature. It's quite...
I mean, when he then eventually moved to the West Rand.
Correct.
And Lebo was one of those South Africans that I always found him impressively genuine.
Yes.
There were no airs and graces about him.
Yes.
And I loved the honesty with which he carried not only himself, but certainly the communities he served.
And I still talk to his mother.
He was one of those people that, in a political infrastructure and an organization that's quite big, you meet so many people.
Yes.
But he was remarkable, and the family, broadly speaking.
Yes.
Libo Emma and many others were such.
Correct.
It was so great to work with the family.
He was my childhood friend. We grew up together, and even when he joined the DA in those days, etc. And I mean, I still talk to the family, and it was quite, when he passed away, it was quite sad for me because, I mean, I remember in varsity, I stayed at home and he stayed Kores at the Tshwane University of Technology. And I remember this one time, I didn't have money to go back home, to get a train, go back home and come back. And he had realized that I used to make some plans around this thing. And he said to me, no, come sleep at my residence, right? He was, and literally he would sleep on the couch and let me sleep on the bed while, anyway.
No. These are, when you meet people like, as I say, the genuineness of it all, the genuineness and the greatness of people like him, I think he would do it for you, he would do it for me, he would do it for anybody else, to be honest.
No, absolutely. So sorry about that. Okay.
No. We are human beings, and when you share insights like that, they take all of us to a sense of, our own pains, our own.
Sure.
When you realize, or sometimes people are like, at times, don't even, when you correctly share, or, sometimes you don't even have money to go to varsity. I think it's an untold story of South Africa about people see us somewhere and they forget, or for some of us, my mother worked as a cashier. When you eventually end up saying, let's go to university, what money?
No, absolutely. And you're quite passionate about education. I mean, what do you have against Njimusega?
I guess I don't have anything against her in person, but I have everything against her in terms of her vision for education in South Africa, or lack thereof.
Yeah.
I firstly think that, one, she's proven over and over again to say that of all the targets they've set themselves, just her own objectives, she's missed. Our education in this country is delivering young people who end up unemployable. Mm-hmm. And the proof of that is in the fact that 2 out of 3 young people are unemployed. Mm-hmm. She's clearly proving the fact that when you look at broadly the lifespan of a child, our kids drop out of school. She accepted a report that said that it's a cash for jobs report that was produced against the unions to say the unions were appointing headmasters in schools and accepting cash for that. And she sat on that report. So she's producing terrible results. She's miseducating, and I would dare say, the black child, because in truth, when you move up the income curve in this country, the better the quality of education you get.
True.
And the majority of people who are poor in this country are black.
Yeah.
So to me, she's achieving what the past wanted to achieve in the first place. It's like she's fulfilling that. And thirdly, and more worrisomely, is that she's been celebrated. She produces matric results. They say, 82%, the president raises it in the State of the Nation address. But when you think about it, really, that number is meaningless.
Yes.
You could make the pass rate 15% and then
get 100%.
Get a 100% pass rate, because every child will pass.
Yeah.
But it means nothing because the standards are so low.
Yeah. So, and we'll get into that. So build one South Africa. You've been very busy over the past few months. Where's the party at the moment? How is your structures? How have you been? How has the party grown? What are you excited about? And what feedback are you getting from the market around Build One South Africa?
First things first, we are just getting into our second year. So if you took any organization, you said, where will you be in 2 years' time from there? One, my own personal favorability has been fairly well accepted. Even in the recent polls, I still sit within the top 3 leaders in the country as favorable candidates for the office of president. Now, that's important in a political environment because you can also have another problem where you've got a leader who's unknown and a party that's unknown, or a leader who's not favorable and a party that is known. So you've got to fix for those things. The second thing is we've grown in all 9 provinces. Actually, I'm grateful as even I sit here today. We are in Gauteng, in Kutsong, in various parts in Soweto. I'm leaving tomorrow. We'll be in the Eastern Cape, in both Gqeberha, Monti, and Umtata.
Nice.
And I can go community by community. Next week I'll be in Limpopo, etc., etc. Yeah. So it indicates to me that across the country, we are being welcomed. Now that's an important thing in the politics where some parties are just regional. We are strong in this region and that's it.
Sure.
Or some parties are just racial.
Sure.
We only attract one particular race.
Yeah.
Or others are religious. We are only for this group or that group. Whereas we've found that when we talk about Build One South Africa, we've been able to get multiple races, multiple communities, multiple income levels.
To build one South Africa.
To build one. That's always the vision, And then the other thing is we've attracted incredible candidates. Because when we then went out to various provinces, we said to people, you want to represent your community, come stand with us. And we've seen such a successful group of people who have come together, such smart individuals that are diverse. In the same organization, you could have Jews, Muslims, you could have black, white, Indian, colored. You've got people who are qualified. You've got people with degrees. And so when I look at the caucus that is likely to go to parliament, you've got more degrees in there than I've seen in any other caucus I've been a part of. Now you might say, well, education doesn't quite correlate, but I'm saying it's important. These are legislators. They are people we task with the duty of making laws in this country. We want the best. We want the educated. And then the fourth thing is we've shown a government in working. So in other words, we've gone out to communities and where there's been a need, we've fought to fight it. So I found myself now becoming better at understanding water and water technology. We've installed boreholes in communities. We were talking about education in a moment. I've become quite intentional about saying the education infrastructure in this country needs to be rebuilt. So we've set up a blended learning center. And in my own life, having left Parliament, I then went into the private sector and tried to figure out how to help started up businesses thrive. So whilst we've been busy, we've been doing. So it's not just talk. I refuse to talk.
And I think that's important. But then, it's quite impressive what you mentioned about the polls and, being the top 3 likely candidate, for presidency. And I mean, system aside and everything else. And you fought the electoral system for a very long time. And we will get to that. But one could argue it doesn't matter that you're in the top 3 because you're not populist. So you're not gonna attract millions of people. Julius will beat you any day.
He is one of them, and then Cyril is the other. But they're interesting opponents because South Africans aren't desperate for populism. South Africans, at their heart, know that actually, as a society, we're 80% religious, and rightly or wrongly, in there it underpins a value that says we must work to be rewarded. Maybe others might say, characterize this as Calvinism, whatever the case might be. It's not, I'm not here to argue theology, except to ascribe a character in our people that says that South Africans actually want to work. So even when you speak to someone on a social grant, their first impulse is to say, but I still want a job. I want a job in every home. That's what I want. Even if you meet someone who gets an RDP house, in the Eastern Cape, they say it well in Xhosa, but andiyonyoka, andiyohlala emgodini engazakhelanga wona. You know, and there's a sense upon which people want to be able to build for themselves. And when you give RDP houses, the strange thing about them is that they carbon copy of each other. They're like replicas. And actually, even amongst people, none of us are a replica of each other. I have 3 kids. Other people have 1 child, whatever the case might be. So why build the same things? Why can't we empower people so that they can make their own choices about what kind of house they want to build? So to be fair, I think if populism in this country was to be rewarded, I think correctly, Julius would be a runaway train. But I think citizens have rejected it. They reject the notion of violence. They reject the notion of this anti-ism. And then they reject the idea that everything must be for free, which is what the EFF is for, everything for free.
But one of the criticisms that you face personally, that people talk about, is you are a different person now than you were, for instance, when you're in the DA. You know, and you know they'll go into but you know, Mmusi changes depending on who he's speaking to. When he was in the DA, he was speaking differently to when he's now in Build One South Africa. What do you make of that criticism?
Look,
and where do you think it stems from?
Look, when I was in the DA, people had a frame. When you join a party like the DA, which is historically a white party, and perhaps maybe others would say is becoming more and more back to its own roots, people already ascribe things to you. They say you are a sellout. You are this, you are that, you are clever, you know, all of those labels. And therefore their expectation of you must be consistent with that image. Suddenly they are discovering Mmusi grew up in Soweto, he understands what we go through on a day-to-day basis, and therefore his language is now starting to sound like mine. I think people find that alarming or disalarming.
Yeah, Mandela, you've changed the accent.
It's not even so much about accents. And I think this is an important point, actually, because I speak 8 languages, right? If you come with me to the Eastern Cape, undive ndithetha isiXhosa, uzawuthi lo ngumXhosa wakwethu. Is that an accent, or is that me understanding where I'm speaking or encoding for that particular community? If siyokhuluma siye KZN, siyokhuluma kahle sikhulume nabantu ngoba sikhuluma isiZulu sabo. That's another way. Hari ya ko Limpopo, rito bulela batho. Bakwishisha.
Yeah.
So I've been gifted with the sense of being able to interact with South Africans from different parts of life.
Sure.
So you can't, people must stop being dishonest. I know, I studied Soweto and I went to an ex-Model C school. So naturally, the English that we have is a combination of both those factors. So naturally, if you are in an ex-Model C school, people will say, oh, you sound here in this, because there's a context here. But then equally so, when you arrive in Soweto, people will hear that this guy has been somewhere and this is what he's talking about. So I don't necessarily, when I hear that criticism,
does it worry you? Do you think it's being weaponized? Do you think it's got any impact at all? Or are you, for you're saying, look, South Africans are able to cut through the BS and...
South Africans want leaders they can trust, who they know haven't stolen their money. They want leaders who they know they can follow because they can follow their vision. And they want leaders with which they believe that when it comes to questions around integrity, are they decent human beings? South Africans want that. And the measure for decency cannot begin and end at accents.
But then those leaders, Mmusi, though, I think there's also a disappointment with people like yourself, because I think people trust you. I think people have got a lot of respect for you, and they've seen the work you've done. but then there's other leaders that are coming through, right? Other parties that are coming through. And people are saying, why can't you all come together? And that's the disappointment part where it comes in. Energize the elections under a banner, under a collection of those leaders that you're talking about, yourself being one of those, right? And people are saying, but it's egos. Mmusi wants to have his own party, Neo wants to have his own party, Jackie wants to have his own party, and no one is coming together. And that gives an impression that,
this is about...
It's about being president and it's about egos. Why can't you guys come together?
I think I appreciate the frustration South Africans share about the never-ending ballot paper. And trust me, we're doing everything we can to narrow it down. I'm meeting parties all the time to try and bring people together. So I say that to say there's a conversation being had about let's bring people together. And I think we'll achieve that. But I think we mustn't lose track of the system, the electoral system we have. The electoral system that you have doesn't make it easy for people to come together before an election. Because if we had an electoral system that was constituency-based, then I could say, no, you're strong in Randburg. I'm going to pull back. You run. I might be strong in Soweto. You pull back and I'll run there. Because then we can't compete. The difficulty about the system as we have it at the moment says it's a one big pizza. Every slice adds up together to make the whole. So therefore, all votes, regardless of where they come from, must count.
Sure.
So to me, had we had the courage after the Constitutional Court judgment, which we won, had amended the electoral system, you would see easier pre-coalitions. But I think citizens mustn't lose track of the fact that there will be post-coalitions because...
Would we though? Would we? Would you work under Songezo? Would Songezo work under you? Would Vuyo Zungula work under you? Or would you work under Bongane Baloyi? Would you?
I've been the big preacher of coalitions. I've always been. And I've always been one who says to myself, because of the system and how it works, let's allow for things to, once we get past the election, figure out what your proportion in the discussion is. Because it's an indicator in a democratic system of the will of the voters. Let the voters tell us. We want Mmusi to be our president. We want this one to be our president. We want whatever, right? They will tell us because they know it. And then we then decide collectively when we arrive in parliament, because that day will come. There can only be one president. There can't be a committee. That day will come where we all have to sit down and say, given all of that, given what the voters have said, because they are paramount in this issue, I might feel this one way or another, but the voters want Neo. They want Mmusi to be the president. We must go vote for that person.
Okay.
And so I think sometimes we bake too much into the conversation about ego because it's almost the next easiest thing. Believe you me, I've had conversations with Songezo. I've had conversations with everyone else that you talk about because I'm always looking to say how
to support you. When they were here, they also said they had conversations with you. But none of you have ever said what came out of those conversations.
I think
I respect that, but I think you have to tell us what came out of those conversations.
I'll tell you because
Songezo said, no, we spoke with Mmusi and
Yeah, I'll tell you. I think there's an in-principle agreement to collaborate. Okay. There's an in-principle agreement to say all of us have a shared interest, which is that we have a free and fair election. So at polling stations, are you going to keep an interest in different things? Others have said, okay, we're going to pull back. I'll be announcing in the near future parties who have said, we'll pull back and be just part of Build One South Africa because that was our model. That's why we started. When we started Build One South Africa, you'll remember I went out, I said, I'm not starting another political party.
Yeah, that was one SA movement, right? When you started with one SA movement, you said, I'm not going to starting another party.
I'm going to amass all of these parties. And you'll remember, for local government elections, we stuck true to that. We had 12 parties, they contested, I supported them. The weakness is that we'd hope to do the same at national government, except the electoral amendment bill did not change sufficiently to allow for that prospect.
And the Minister of Home Affairs obviously decided to kick the can down the road.
Correct.
So let me tell you what I was impressed by. I think it was a year and a half ago, whatever the case is. I sat on a webinar that you guys had called on terms of your candidates and how to vet your candidates, because I was interested to see your process, and I found that process fascinating because someone could apply, and I don't know if apply is the right word, to be a member of parliament should you win. There's 1,000 signatures that are required. I was impressed at the fact that you went to the level of criminal checks when I was on that webinar, and I was like, okay, that's something else. I see a lot of parties are now doing that. How did that go? And
as I say, I mean, you end up when you do that with people like Ayanda Ali.
Sure.
You end up with people like Nobuntu Hlazo Webster. You end up with such incredible talent.
Yes.
Because you have the courage to make politics not about politicians.
Yes.
One of the things I'm proud of, and people say it's a criticism, they say, Mar, people from the DA did not come and join you. I said, I didn't want to start a branch of the DA.
Yeah.
People from this, we wanted, as I think someone said it says, politics is so important, it can't be left up to politicians.
Yeah.
That we had to bring a diversity of talent. So the process has really borne fruit.
Yeah.
And when people have to bring their own 1,000 signatures, it's your first test in politics.
Sure.
It's whether you can get, because it's easy to get your mother and your family to tell you, Zaman, go sing at Idols. And then you arrive at Idols, but at least in this instance, you can literally go and test the community to say you've got support.
Yeah.
And that's a litmus test.
I was trying to do the math. I was sitting there thinking 1,000 signatures, 400 seats in parliament. On average, you need about maybe 47,000, between 47 and 55,000 votes to actually get a seat. Is it trying? I was like doing this thing, but eventually I realized that actually this is the only way to do it. Yeah. You want people that are credible in the community. But you spoke about people from the DA not joining you, etc., whatever the case is. The criticism that I hear is that you're quite hard to work with.
Me?
Yeah. That Herman Mashaba, you couldn't do a deal with Herman. Lindwe Mazibuko, Barke Mankana, Mbali. You led those guys. I would have expected at some point that you would have been together.
And maybe the future is still open to that conversation. It's not shut.
Sure.
I think particularly I have a vision for this country, and I think I left the DA because I wouldn't want to compromise on that. And therefore, I'm not just going to say, let's work with people and not advance a vision.
Sure.
So, for example, if someone stands up and says, immigrants must go, and we're going to have buses of people being deported out the country, etc., etc. As someone who is pro-Africa, believes that we need to deal with dictators in Africa if we're going to fight against immigration and build strong immigration laws, because my first value is the value of Ubuntu, emanating from the idea that I love my neighbor. Why do I now suddenly want to collaborate in simple terms to say, okay, I'll advance that? That's the genuineness of politics, and that's where it's dangerous. And so for me, I think that we can work together, but we mustn't ever lose principles, because then you commercialize politics, and once you are there, it's politics of convenience, and they don't last. Remember, we have a struggle here. The vision for a non-racial South Africa, one that builds one South Africa, is not something we've just come up with today. It's been wired into the tapestry of our nation forever. It was the fact that the formation even of organizations, PAC, ANC, 1912, was a struggle against racial oppression of some kind or another. When you look at fast forward post-colonialism and the fight against apartheid, people take Mandela's speech from the dock about black domination and white domination and ignore the broader context that says the demand is for equality of blacks with whites.
Yeah.
That's the broader demand. That even in the epoch of history, that was not unique to the message that Martin Luther King was speaking elsewhere, and all of the civil rights movements in the world seeking that equality. And that if you head towards the late 80s, people like Bears No Deer standing up even in faith formation saying, we've got to fight for a need for an equality of citizens.
Yes.
When we take that baton forward, we've got to fight it. The struggle isn't against the ANC in that sense.
Sure.
The struggle truly is about how do we bring a country upon which we never have to go through cycles of domination. And all we are doing now is we're waiting for the next dominant force. Are we waiting now to be governed by a particular ethnic group, etc.? No, I reject that idea. I want to stand for an idea that says, actually post that. Let us take a South Africa upon which citizens, regardless of where they come from, can prosper together. So I feel we are in the lineage of people who have fought for this vision, and we can't betray them at the altar of political convenience.
No, makes sense. But how do you convince South Africans, as Mmusi Maimane has built One South Africa, that you have what it takes to really take this country forward without a wave of populism? Because part of what we hear is, there's no way Mmusi is going to take on Panyaza or a Julius. It's too soft, man. These guys are too soft. And, white monopoly capital, and they're being funded by other people. These guys are not genuine, etc., right? And the whole issue of funding is being weaponized in many instances. And these elections are so important and crucial, and I don't have to tell you that, that it's important that parties like Build One South Africa are able to convince South Africans that trust us, right? How are you going to convince South Africans that you can be the same street fighter that Panyaza can be and Julius can be and all these other guys that talk about we're going to expropriate everything tomorrow? I
mean, firstly, some of it is sometimes we celebrate sprinters and we forget that politics is a marathon. We are not Johnny-come-latelys. We're not people who've just popped up and come through. We've been in this thing for a while now to see certain things. And I say that because I bring, you as a leader must face defeat, must face victories. But as Eleanor Roosevelt is, you must remain in the fight. I've seen success.
T.D. Roosevelt. Why are you attributing it to his wife?
Oh, okay. Let me...
Men in the Arena.
Yes.
April 1910.
The truth is, I've seen some success. We formed coalitions in 2016 with the same Panyazas of this world here.
Sure.
All of them.
Sure.
And we fought. You'll remember Panyaza and his crew were fighting to put Johannesburg under administration, all of those kinds of things. We fought. Ndate Mashaba knows very well. We went, I fought for him to be the mayor when Julius was telling us he doesn't want him to be the mayor. You will remember.
I remember that period.
So we fought.
What was the criticism from the day at the time that Hemen was, what did he say? He's on the left of us.
Yeah. So we fought those battles.
Yeah.
We've also seen some difficult defeats. I won't sit here and say to you 2019 was a pleasant year. When you suffer in an election and you eventually resign and all of those things, they're hard.
Sure.
So I'm coming back as a leader who, when we left in 2019, I went into the private sector, learned a new set of skills. I'm completing a PhD in macroeconomics now.
Nice.
You bring a set of skills.
Nice.
And then you arrive again saying, don't vote for your fears, vote for your hopes.
Yes.
I am confident as I sit here today that I have to believe I'm best positioned to take this country forward.
Yes.
Not tainted with corruption, not tainted with a party that's got corrupt elements. I'm sitting here today saying I've equipped myself and have seen both success and failure. And now what I want to do is to say, working with all South Africans, let's take the thing forward. No leader arrives perfect. If we are waiting for a messiah in that sense, we're going to wait for a long time. We have to express hope. We have to express trust. I will guarantee South Africans. People always ask me, what's your first 100 days going to look like? I say to them, the 100 days look like a Mmusi who goes to find the best people to work to serve this country. I'm a team player despite all of what people say, actually to work with people so that we can collectively take South Africa forward.
But how can you be a team player if you refused an invitation to join the multi-party charter?
The multi-party charter is not, as I've said, even recently. WhatsApp group ESO. or ESO. Look, the multi-party charter is in that sense no different to me standing up and saying, I'll work with all opposition parties.
Yeah.
It's no different in that sense.
Yeah.
What's the glue that sits within it, actually? You got to ask that question and say, are these parties going to compete with each other during the elections? They are going to. Bale, they are going to say, don't vote for small parties. The other ones are going to say, these ones have failed, vote for us. The competition is going to continue. Why?
I heard from front lines already saying that, oh no, the DA is saying people mustn't vote for small parties.
So I don't want to be part of that.
Sure.
What I do want to be a part of is to say, if the multi-party charter gets Boma 30,
sure,
who's going to occupy this middle ground?
Sure.
The contest, if I put it to you in simple terms,
yeah,
the contest for the future of this country is a contestation between myself and Julius Malema.
Ooh, that's a big statement.
And I say it like this.
Ooh, that's a big statement.
Let me tell you why. Because Julius and them have the EFF,
sure,
which is in some ways a radicalization of the values that sit within the ANC.
Sure.
Others would say the EFF is merely the ANC in drag, right? It's just an extreme version of that. The future of this country must answer the question, are we going to adopt those policies? Because be assured, if the EFF grows, the ANC will follow its drumbeat. Because they are from the same tree, just a different branch. If Build One South Africa grows, then that vision of non-racialism, a prosperous South Africa for all, of constitutionalism, must thrive, which we own. That Mandela type vision.
You don't own that. Other parties are saying the same thing. If you
No.
listen to Songes, if you listen to Bongani, if you
Where
listen to everyone is talking
it's a
about
contested
the same
space.
thing.
So when I talk about that leadership cohort of favorability, I don't see Bobongane and all of them in that category. You can take any poll, take any sample.
You're
Ask
dissing,
people.
you're dissing them, bruh.
I'm not. I'm just saying. No, by saying when you look at the Premier League, Chiefs more, Sundowns more, Pirates more. By saying Hore Sikukuni is there, it's not dissing anyone. It's just saying the rankings are like what they are. That's what I'm saying. If you then look at that issue,
Sure.
those values must be contested for.
Sure.
And therefore, if they are going to be contested for, that's the contestation for the future. And I would say, whilst I've made it personal between him and I, it's values actually.
Sure.
Because his values, I have to ask the question, his values and that of Jacob Zuma and many others, are they the same? My values and those of Songezo and many others, are they the same? That is the parallel train this country is running on.
Sure.
Because if you are in business,
Sure.
the first question you ask when you want to buy a business is not so much whether the business will deliver value or not. Is you actually look at the management team and ask, will they grow this organization?
Yes.
Now, when you buy the management of this country,
Yes.
the ANC and the DA,
Yes.
if nothing radical happens, age will take care of them.
Sure.
I mean, Cyril, to be fair, should be looking after grandkids.
Sure.
I'm not dissing.
It is true.
I'm just saying,
I
people
agree
who
with that,
stand up and say, Naranale Oliver Tambo, Gomorogoro.
Literally a detachment.
I'm like, guy,
Have you heard them talk about the strategy and tactics document?
yeah, and they talk,
In 1987, ready to govern. In the conference of Morogoro.
Morogoro.
And afterwards,
And I'm
Jackie,
going,
what's the thing? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
and frankly, if I look at that situation, I go, Bruru, at best, you should be looking after your grandkids. You do well there. I would never buy a company that's going to be run by a 70-year-old.
Sure.
I just wouldn't know.
Sure.
Now what I'm saying is, look at the future, look at the management of this country, and say, who are the leaders coming up? Which values do they share? Which values are going to win? Whichever values win in a long period of time will determine where the destination of this
And I hear you on that. So I was looking at, because I follow your page, I follow everyone. and you were making a plea to South Africans living abroad to register to vote. And you said something there, and I kept rewinding and like, is he saying it? Is he saying it? You said, I am committed not only as the leader of South Africa, and I'm paraphrasing, but also as a kingmaker in the elections. You can't call yourself a kingmaker.
Why not?
That's pretentious.
What do you mean?
It's not, the elections haven't happened yet.
I am telling you now that we occupy that centrist space. We're going to amass South Africans who are going to vote for us. And we want to bring South Africans together who share values, and we'll work with them. Mm-hmm. That is a statement not only of intent, but one that says, should post the elections, we want to bring South Africans together who share values. Mm-hmm. Again, I want to emphasize that point. So I'm asking South Africans to figure out that there is a pathway to change. Because the counter narrative is those ones who are standing and saying, if we lose the elections, it's a regime change. What nonsense is that?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I've heard that.
From a sitting president who says he's a Democrat, but when elections are confronting him, he says it's a regime change. It's nonsense. We have to show people that their vote will matter, and their vote for BOSA will matter, because the values that BOSA stands for and the people of this country matter.
Okay.
We hold that as a tenet.
As a tenet, yeah. No, and there's something else that I want to get into. You've been very vocal about the township economy, and you've held it as one of the values that governance pillars that you would take seriously if and when you get into government. There's a lot of people that have been speaking about township economy this and township economy that, right? What's different about your messaging about Autisako Kasi and just Kasi in general?
I think, you see, I said it and I'll say it again. I don't just want to build the township economy in that sense. I want to build an economy from the township. Now, there's a difference in view about that.
Please unpack it for me.
Because if you think about the infrastructure of apartheid, the emergence of Soweto and hostels in Soweto was a function of minds saying we need places where people can live so they can come and work in mines, right? So all townships are just dwellings for Africans who supply labor closest to mines. Today, what we've done is we've created other so-called mines, call centers, all of the restaurants, all of that service industry
around it.
And we put it here and we say, let the townships continue to just supply labor. We have to reverse that. We have to reverse it in twofold. We have to invest heavily in infrastructure in townships. We have to put BPO centers in townships so that the first thing that we do is we allow people in townships to work closer to home. Because half of the reason why I think our society suffers from violence is because kids are raising themselves, because the apartheid spatial infrastructure is still intact. And people spend 40% of their income on transport. Let's reverse that. But we can't create, when people think about a township economy, they're imagining people selling T-shirts, selling oranges, selling makwenya, all of that. What we want is IT companies that service people in Sandton, eventually in Stockholm, because that's an economy that comes from the township and moves forward. So our proposal has been that we want to invest over 200 billion rands in building infrastructure in townships, broaden the economic infrastructure that goes in there, and furthermore identify entrepreneurs there, not so that they can benefit narrowly, which is what the ANC's thinking is, from government tender opportunities, but to really be market players in a broader economy. So we reset that transactional nature of where we just only export labor from townships. We must export goods, we must export services. And if you are calling from Australia and you want service on your TV, why can't someone in Soweto answer that call and make a telecom center work for you?
Sure.
We have to review how we think about people in town.
And for me, you see, that is the kind of vision that I think South Africans want to hear. I think it's a question of competence that we need to build around the government. And we're getting to the end of the show. And I want to end it with just kind of like from a funding standpoint, right? How are you guys raising funds? Is South Africans seeing the vision and funding you as a result? Are you finding it hard to raise funding? Because politics is expensive, right? And I think a lot of people don't realize that you actually need a lot of funds to make democracy work.
Politics is an expensive exercise, no doubt. And all donors who have donated above 100,000 rand threshold have been declared on the IEC's thing. So we're not trying to hide anything. It's just common cause.
Sure.
But I'm excited. We're putting together a platform and we've been asking people for low value donations, and people are coming on board saying, I'll give you 100 rand. You know what I've been so positive about? Yeah. Neo, people ask me, how are you finding your new colors, as it were?
New colors.
And I say to them, I'm having fun.
Sure.
Now, whether we get whatever percentage in the election, the fight is worth it.
Sure.
I won't lie to you and say it's easy, that people fund it. Of course, we've been favored. We've had good opportunities, we've had good people who've given us money, and I'm grateful for that. We could do with more. I mean, relative to all the other parties, even some of the newer ones, when I look at how much they are spending on whatever, I say, I wish we had more of that money. But I'm not obsessed about it because I think what we are fighting for is so important. And I am privileged to be able to do it. And so as I go around in communities and I see someone say, I'll take my last petrol to go collect activists to go register to vote.
Wow.
That's as much a contribution as anyone who could give us over 1 million rands. I met someone yesterday who says to me, bro, I want to give you I want to buy t-shirts for your activists. There may not be many, but I will fund this community's t-shirts. Those are South Africans.
Wow.
Because when I think about, I was inspired. I once remember sitting le Mbeki.
Yes.
President Mbeki's
wife. Yes.
And Mbeki, who I consider a mother, and President Mbeki and I have had multiple interactions. I respect him. I respect President Motlanthe. We spend enough time.
Yeah, but stop there.
Hey?
After Motlanthe, stop there.
But Mbeki once said to me, he said, when we were at the UDF, many of us were running civil, NGOs, all of that. They all contributed in some way or another. And no one can downplay the role the UDF played in being able to bring an end to apartheid.
True.
Now, if that is so, then we must cheapen politics to a point where anyone can participate.
Make it accessible.
That's why when you have a candidate who sits, I have a candidate in KZN. Yes. This guy's in a wheelchair.
Yes.
Every time I think I wake up early to catch the next flight and it's ugly and it's tough, I always remember that guy. This guy, bro, is on a wheelchair. He's on a disability grant.
Yes.
He's standing in the middle of traffic, handing out BOSA pamphlets. It's a picture I hold on my phone, handing out BOSA pamphlets for his campaign. You see someone like him and you think to yourself, what excuse do I have? Wow. What excuse do I have? Wow. It's those South Africans that make me get up in the morning, make me think, actually, it's possible. Wow. We've had a lot of conversations even tonight about fellow politicians and this and that.
Yes.
Yeah, fine, we'll massage that.
Yeah.
And we'll deal with it because we will work together. Yeah. I can assure you. Like I'm not, maybe you might ascribe ego and all of those things. Yeah. Genuinely. I'm honest when I say this. I'll work together because this country is more important. Sure. I've even said, I'll even talk and engage with the DA, despite the issues I have with the DA of transformation, of justice, all of that. Despite those issues, I will still sit down with John and talk to him and talk to Helen if she wants to talk. I have no issue with that.
Sure. For the sake of the country.
This is about, but the coalition we must build is a coalition with citizens, because the story we've got to tell is that there's life after the ANC.
Anyone watching this podcast, Mmusi, and they're worried and they're scared that this is the end of our country, the thieves are going to come back in. They're going to do what they do best. Mmusi and everyone else are not going to come together, or Mmusi might not get enough votes to actually be president if they really believe in you. What must I do with my vote? There's over 360 parties on the ballot, etc. We aim to energize people leading up to the elections and show them that they are part of the process. What message do you have for them, and where can they join BOSA?
One, you can join BOSA on our website. We'll be launching I'll send a number for our WhatsApp bot. It'll give you every information that you need. You can make contact with them. You can talk to our assistant, all of that. So that's the easy part. But I want to say this to people. In the late 90s, the apartheid government stood up and said, don't hand this country to these ones. They're going to mess it up. We have been running South Africa. Look after us. That is a fear. And there are many people who want to say that fear today. But there are new parties, there's chaos, there's this. We must stick to the devil we know. Why would you want to vote for a devil? I mean, it's just think about it for 1 second. It's just, we mustn't get stuck, hung up on the ANC. We must realize this simple truth, that the opposition is not going to arrive ready-baked. Mandela and his group did not arrive in the union buildings ready-baked. They were in the main young people my age. But Tito Mboweni, Trevor Manuel, and so many others were young.
Isn't it crazy that Trevor Manuel was 32 when he was Minister of Finance? Tito Mboweni was 34
when
he was Minister of Labour in 96 or so.
They were young people. And all I'm saying is, you have to vote for new. And I'm challenging people to say, when you vote for BOSA, you'll get values that even if they are not enough to become the presidency, etc., the bottom line is you want those values to be fought for in Parliament. The value of a non-racial South Africa, a job in every home, you want it there. Actually, you do. If you think you want to support the Springboks and Siya Kolisi and so many others, they epitomize a vision of all of us South Africans working together, regardless of where we come from, to be world champions. You want that vision, that's the vision we carry. So, and we've got to bring it into politics, because if we can fix the politics, this country will turn. So my point at the end of the day is simply this, is that the old is gone and the new must come. It's not big versus small. It's old versus new. And new brings new ideas, new vision. Our system is proportional by nature. When you put your vote next to BOSA and we get 1 million votes, we dictate what the government will do. Give us that opportunity to be able to bring all of these elements. I've been privileged in my life to have had to sit with Peter Groenewald on one side, Prince Buthelezi on the other side, and Helen Zille on the other side. And say, can we form a government for the people? And we've been able to do so. I've even sat with Julius. So I'm saying there's an opportunity where at least we've seen the strengths and the weaknesses. Let's bring people together and prosper.
Auteka, thank you very much, man. It's been a while. We've been chasing you to come to the show.
And I hope you're here. Hopefully you'll invite me again.
No, we'll do it again. Thank you so much, Mmusi.
Thank you so much. Whitey, under pressure.
Well, that's because we know you can handle it.
John Pellman once said that to me. He said, he was talking about cricket. He gave me such a tough interview. And then when I was done with him, he said to me, you must decide as a cricketer. Do you want to score 100 against Bangladesh, or you want to score 70 against Australia?
That's a good one.
And he said,
that's a good one.
That's a good one. If I give you soft landings, then
then what's the point? Anyway, guys, that was our show. Thank you very much for joining us. Remember, you may not be interested in politics, but politics is always interested in you. Follow us on all our social media platforms. Follow Build One South Africa as well. We'll see you next time.